Hi, it's Katrina. From vanishing birds to mythical reptile-mammal hybrids, here are 9 creatures people thought were fake or extinct, but really aren't. Number 9. The Devil Bird. Known in Sri Lanka as the ulama, the devil bird was once considered a cryptid, a creature from myth and folklore. Local legends spoke of an evil bird that made blood-curdling, human-like shrieks in the middle of the night from within the jungle. People believed that the animal's shrill noises predicted a loved one's death, kind of like the banshee. Very few have seen the creature, and those who have described it as a massive bird with a large tail, horns coming out of its head, and eyes that glowed in the dark. According to legend, a husband went into a jealous rage and served his wife their child for dinner. I don't want to get too graphic, but you can picture it. She saw a finger and ran off into the forest where she transformed into the devil bird, forever screaming in grief. Dr. R.L. Patel thoroughly investigated the legendary bird in his book, Far Off Things. He spent much of his time researching in the jungles of Sri Lanka, then called Ceylon. Patel suggested that the real ulama was possibly the spot-bellied eagle owl, crested hawk eagle, or crested honey buzzard. He narrowed it down to the spot-bellied eagle owl, hoping to put the rumors and the fear to rest. In 2001, villagers discovered a spot-bellied eagle owl, which received a lot of press as the conclusive real-life ulama. However, there are those that still refuse to believe that this creature is not mythical, or argue that the cry or call is more like the changeable hawk eagle, which also more closely resembles the animal's description in folklore. What do you think? Could the spot-bellied eagle owl be the creature of legend? Seems like it. Number 8. Giant Palouse Earthworm. In 1897, a man named Frank Smith discovered the giant Palouse earthworm near Pullman, Washington. The long, white creature was native to the Palouse Prairie region of Washington and Idaho, and by 1980 it was believed to be extinct. Consequently, little was known about the giant earthworm, which was rumored to grow up to 3.3 feet long. In fact, some people thought it never even existed. But proof that the giant Palouse earthworm is a real creature and that it still exists has surfaced numerous times in recent years. Researchers from the University of Idaho collected the first confirmed specimen in 2005. In 2010, scientist Carl Umaker gathered a second sample in an unplowed field with the help of a device called an electroshocker, which caused the worm to surface from the ground. That doesn't sound very nice. Soil ecologist Jody Johnson-Maynard pointed out that the newly discovered worms suggest they aren't as long as they were once rumored to be, and that their average size is probably a foot or less. At least it's not the Mongolian death worm roaming around. Still, it's pretty big, and it's bizarre looking compared to other earthworms, with a translucent body that is more bulbous on both ends than other species. It also apparently gains a distinctive aroma once it reaches maturity. Johnson Maynard told NPR that they smell like lilies. That's very specific. Some local farmers became worried that the giant Palouse earthworm would end up on the endangered species list, causing the government to seize authority over what they can and can't do with their land. They were therefore hoping for the animal to maintain an inconspicuous presence and retaining a more legendary status. Number 7. The Takahe. The South Island Takahe of New Zealand is so rare it was long believed to be extinct. Europeans first encountered the large flightless green and blue feathered bird in 1847, and only 4 specimens were collected throughout the 19th century. Soon after that, and despite continued unconfirmed sightings by locals and hunters, scientists presumed that the species had died out completely. 50 years later, in 1948, a man named Geoffrey Orbell rediscovered the South Island Takahe in an isolated valley in the South Island's Murchison Mountains. The species was once abundant throughout New Zealand, but numbers less than 300 today. While it still has a wild presence in the Murchison Mountains, the South Island Takahe has been introduced to several islands and mainland sites. The New Zealand Department of Conservation and local organization Takahe Rescue work avidly together toward ensuring the long-term survival of the rare bird. Number 6. The Thylacine. Also known as the Tasmanian wolf or Tasmanian tiger, the Thylacine was a large carnivorous marsupial and the only member of the Thylacinidae family to survive into modern times. It was perhaps best known for the 15 to 20 distinct dark stripes that covered its back. The Thylacine was once widespread throughout Australia, extending to Tasmania in the south and New Guinea to the north. It went extinct on the Australian mainland 2,000 years ago or less, and its presence was restricted to Tasmania before being presumed entirely extinct. The last known thylacine, Benjamin, died in 1936 at the Hobart Zoo. Despite being considered extinct, there have been over 3,000 unconfirmed sightings of the thylacine throughout Australia and Tasmania, which continue to this day. Some people have even captured photographs of what they claim to be thylacines, although experts have been unable to verify the authenticity of the images. Earlier this year, the Australian government released a document detailing reported thylacine sightings as recently as August. Given the evidence, many people find it hard to believe that the thylacine is truly extinct. I hope it's true that it's still around. What do you think? Is it still out there? Let me know in the comments. Number 5. Bermuda Petrel. Also called the Cahao, the Bermuda Petrel was a bird of legendary status for hundreds of years. In 1492, Christopher Columbus observed the Bermuda Petrel in an abundance of up to 500,000 nesting pairs throughout the archipelago. Legend has it that early Spanish settlers mistook the bird's creepy calls as roaming demons, causing them to avoid the Bermudan islands, like the devil bird of Sri Lanka. When people think there are demons, it helps animals survive. The petrel became scarce within a few decades of European arrival to Bermuda thanks to human exploitation. In the early 1600s, the introduction of rats, cats, pigs, and dogs that came along with permanent English settlers further wreaked havoc on the petrel population. When rats destroyed crops in 1614, the governor moved residents to nearby Cooper's Island, where they devoured many of the remaining birds to avoid starvation. The next governor, Daniel Tucker, discouraged people from eating petrels, but by then the damage was done. In 1620, the species was presumed extinct. Signs of the bird's continued existence persisted, but not enough to prove that it was truly still around. Finally, in 1905, a lone specimen was discovered on Gurnet Rock off Castle Island. Throughout the 1930s and 40s, several more petrels were found, although mostly dead. In 1951, a scientific expedition found 7 nesting pairs of petrels throughout the Bermudan Islands. Thanks to the outspoken efforts of Bermuda's former conservation officer, David B. Wingate, who championed for the bird's conservation for over 5 decades, and the help of several others, the species was restored to 105 nesting pairs as of spring 2013, sparking renewed hope for its long-term survival. Number 4. Tiny people. Hobbits, elves, gnomes, there are many myths out there about races of small people, and they're commonly accepted as folklore, but scientific evidence shows that unusually small species of hominids once existed. In 2003, archaeologists discovered the remains of what life science called a real-life hobbit in the Liang Bua cave on the Indonesian island of Flores. The 18,000-year-old skeletal remains were of a small-statured woman who was just 3 feet tall. Her brain was 1/3 the size of the modern average adult human's brain. Scientists believe the skeletons represent a previously unknown branch of the hominid family tree and named it Homo floresiensis. They believe it was a dwarfed offshoot of the human ancestor Homo erectus that lived as much as 1.8 million years ago. Researchers believe that these small hominids left Flores either shortly before or after modern humans arrived. Numerous other examples of small people have been found since then, but scientists remain unsure of why they went extinct. Number 3. Dire wolves. Game of Thrones fans are well acquainted with gigantic wolves called dire wolves, along with a host of other fictional creatures that appear in the books and on the show. But were they all fictional? During the Pleistocene, between 250,000 and 10,000 years ago, there was a species of large wolf called Canis dirus that was closely related to modern canids. It lived in forests and grasslands at high elevations and was especially common in North America. While Canis dirus wasn't quite as massive as the dire wolves in Game of Thrones, it was pretty darn big, measuring 5 foot long on average and weighing up to 200 pounds. Biomechanics specialist Steve Rowe examined fossilized remains of the animal in 2005 and determined that it had a massive jaw and one of the largest bite forces of any living or extinct carnivorous canids. Paleontologists discovered lots of breakage along the real-life direwolf's teeth, suggesting that they were highly aggressive and frequently competed with other carnivorous species. Scientists are unsure why Canis dirus went extinct, along with many other species at the time. Analyses of the animal's teeth show no sudden changes in its diet, challenging the proposed theory of a food shortage causing its extinction. Number 2. The Bunyip. There is a mythical creature in Australian Aboriginal folklore known as the Bunyip, which means devil or spirit. According to the legend, it resembles a crocodile-horse hybrid and lives in the water, making strange booming noises as it stalks and kills humans. Hundreds of people have supposedly witnessed the Bunyip, yet it's never been captured on camera. So what's the deal? In Australia in 1839, someone discovered the fossilized remains of an extinct animal called the Diprotodon. Also known as the giant wombat, it was the largest ever marsupial, roughly the size of a modern-day rhinoceros. So, although it was an herbivore, it was nevertheless intimidating. The Diprotodon went extinct as recently as 20 to 40,000 years ago, which was after the first Aboriginal people arrived in Australia, indicating that perhaps the legendary Bunyip derived from real-life sightings and interactions between humans and the beast. Then, stories were passed down generation to generation. Number 1. The Demon Dog of Siberia. In 2016, the Siberian Times reported that diamond miners in the remote Siberian town of Udakny had unearthed a bizarre, mummified monster. There is a sandbed there full of diamonds that people have been mining since the 50s. The sands are estimated to be from the early Triassic to the end of the Cretaceous, so people speculated it could be a new type of unknown dinosaur. Or it was the escaped spawn of the three-jawed monster in The Thing. This demonic-looking mummy carcass still had part of its brain intact, and the miners were hoping it was ancient. But while the creature is definitely real, it is not a dinosaur, nor is it a demon. It looks like it's a mammal, and a recent one. Turns out that it's a polecat. The demon baby spawn was the dried-out body of a Russian fitch, members of the mustelid family, which includes weasels, ferrets, minks, and martens. What do you think? Do you want to hold it? Thanks for watching! What other types of creatures would you like to learn about? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss out on the next video. See you soon! Bye!